What's up, adventurers, and welcome to my channel. I'm ADV Ryan, and I'm here to give you a little insight into who I am and also provide you my closing thoughts on the 2022 Aprilia Tuareg 660. So if you notice standing behind me here, this is Boba Fett from Star Wars. If you follow me on Instagram, Facebook, you may have seen me cross the stream, so to speak. I do charity work with Boba Fett. It took me about 3.5 years to build this and paint it myself. And I do mostly pediatric cancer events. Here's a few photos of us suited up going into an event. I had my re-enlistment done in my Boba Fett as well. But yeah, we do this to raise money for pediatric cancer victims and warriors, and also children's hospitals, things like that. It's a big part of my life. I feel the need to give back. I think that's so important, and not a lot of people know about pediatric cancer and how little attention it gets in terms of treatment. And you just don't know how many people are actually out there struggling with this, how many families, and my heart goes out to them. But what I wanted to focus on today was a little bit about that and the importance of that, but also give you a closing thoughts review on the Aprilia Tuareg 660, and that's where we're going to jump into right now. When Aprilia stepped back into the market, the T7 was dominating. I myself looked at a T7 when I first was looking into the midsize adventure segment, and they were hard to get, and people were charging a lot of money for them. And I saw the Aprilia, and I thought, hey, there's a bike right there that looks, it grabs my attention. What's this about? So after doing some research, finding out that they had been out of the game a long time, since the 80s, around when I was born, early 80s, and they were jumping back onto the scene, my thought process was, yes, they may have a small dealer network, but they are also going to have to throw the kitchen sink at this thing to make it compete with the T7, and they did. And you can see that across the board. Now, Yamaha reliability, that's going to be the top score for that bike, but the Aprilia has a lot to offer, and let's get into that right now. So I already spoke about kind of my opinion of the mid-size champ, and I firmly believe that that's the Aprilia Tuareg. If you are unloaded, carrying just like a backpack, something, lightweight luggage, it feels like a big dirt bike when you're in the technical stuff. Fully loaded, that's a little bit different story, and you can probably tell some of that from my Continental Divide footage. The KYB suspension is world class. If you buy a T7, you have to get the World Raid Edition to get the KYB suspension, and the Aprilia comes with it stock. The effortless switch between ride modes is unparalleled. Before, when I was on, the ancient DR650s or KLR 650s, you didn't have all the ride modes and all the gadgetry and things like that. And when I switched over to a 390 Adventure, I loved the TFT display. The ability to switch ride modes and things like that were great. However, on the 390, you have to come to complete stop, holding down the button for 4 seconds or whatever it is, and then switching to off-road mode to turn your traction control off. The Aprilia does that flawlessly. You can switch it on the run, not have to stop. It is huge. Huge A+ there for Aprilia, making that available to riders. My next point comes to comfortability. Okay, so when most people buy bikes, you're replacing the seat, mirrors, risers for riding position, things like that. The Aprilia comes set up perfect. I am about 5'11", 185 pounds, give or take, and the riding position, the comfortability where my arms were on the bars, perfect. The seat, wonderful. Best stock adventure seat on any bike that I have ever ridden, and that's even street. And I used to ride cruisers. Very comfortable seat, especially once broken in. Another feature that Aprilia offered on their bike was the pegs. The pegs are nice. They come with the rubber inserts that you can remove. That is another thing that, most bikes require you to change out. To get a peg that's capable enough for you to not slip off, wider base, so that you have a good balance, and or you have to lower the pegs for taller riders. The Aprilia Tuareg pegs were on point. A+ Aprilia. Now for the nitty gritty, performance. Performance is also important to many riders. Myself, I feel like suspension is becoming more and more important, and that just touches back on my earlier comments with the KYB suspension and how great it was. We know that the Aprilia is 450 pounds wet. It's a 4-stroke, 80 horsepower, and comes with tubeless wheels, a 21-inch wheel on the front, 18 on the rear. With that 21-inch front wheel and rear 18-inch wheel, you can buy a wide variety of tires for the Tuareg, which makes the ability to grab an off-road set for an off-road rider and a street set for a street rider that much better. The gas mileage was also very good. I think I ranged anywhere from 200 miles to 225 miles a tank. Now that's not throttling down on it. You know, obviously the more aggressive you ride in the city, on slow, tight trails, you know, the more fuel you're going to burn, obviously. But it's a 4.8 gallon tank, and it was plenty on my Continental Divide trip. So those are some of the pros. Let's take a look at some of the cons. The first con that comes to mind for me is the front sprocket. Had I kept the bike longer, I would have dropped a tooth in the front. That's me. I'm an off-road rider. If you're on the street, you probably don't want to do that. But if you're going to be riding tight technical trails, I would suggest dropping a tooth in the front sprocket, and it would give you that lower down growl. You wouldn't have to be caught in between gears, slapping the clutch, pulling it in, switching gears, switching back to get that low down pull that you need to traverse over some slow speed technical areas. Another con is the weight. 450 pounds is not an easy animal to push around when you're in the slow speed technical stuff. That is really where I found the Aprilia to be most heavy, which is obvious. You're in a slow speed situation, the bike is going to get heavier because your momentum slowed down. 450 pounds was a bit heavy for what I wanted to do and probably should have taken the bike in the first place. Another pain point for Aprilia riders is the clutch bolt and the rear brake lever bolt. Both of those of which I replaced with an AF1 titanium replacement bolt. Others have fabricated new bolts and setups to fix that problem. I dropped my bike multiple times with the titanium setup on both sides and had no issues. I think I had a very slight bend in the clutch lever, and that was about it. I do highly suggest replacing those bolts. That is really one of the most important modifications that you can do before you head out on the trail by yourself. One other issue that I had was the fuel sensor. Aprilia knows about this issue, and it's not something that is going to leave you stranded. The fuel sensor fails, it starts flashing, and you don't get an accurate fuel reading on your gauge. I had this happen right before I left for the Continental Divide, and it took about a month and a half for them to get the part ordered in. The fuel sensor wasn't a huge problem because I was able to calculate fuel mileage based on how many miles I had ridden and what my average fuel mileage was. So it was not a huge issue on the trail for me, just more of an annoyance. One issue early on, which was denied by many but is now being accepted widely, is the fact that the airbox allows dust past the stock filter. My stock filters on my other bikes did not do this, and the Aprilia sucks dust. I highly suggest getting a funnel web pre-filter or at least a unifilter from Australia. You can check the forums, it's confirmed. Aprilia is aware of the issue. They actually sell the motorcycles in Australia with unifilters, so they know it's a problem. I'm not sure if they've done that in the US now or not, but we do have the same types of dust, the very fine dust that gets through past the filter and coats the airbox. Dust in your intake is not good. Minerals, particles, whatever you want to call it, interfering with your oil is not good. It will accelerate the wear of your piston rings and everything in between. So I highly suggest you get a unifilter and oil it. One of the things that I would do and I suggest is to do early oil changes, especially if you're riding off-road. If you're riding solo off-road or you're riding mostly street, I think you'll be okay with the recommended intervals. But if you are riding off-road and you're riding off-road in groups, I would suggest about a 3,000 mile oil change, and that's post first service oil change. In closing, If I had to do it all over again, I would still choose the Aprilia Tuareg. It is the best mid-size bike on the market. I think that there is a small gap between the Tuareg and the T7. However, the Tuareg has just a few more gadgets that make things more comfortable. Longevity is yet to be seen, but I think most of the problems that have come from the Aprilia have been small and insignificant. Things that you can fix. Every single bike that you buy requires some form of modification to make it ready for the trail. I think we all know that. I would still go with the Aprilia. The low slung weight of the fuel tank, it feels like a big dirt bike off-road. For me, I made the decision to sell the Tuareg because of my riding group and the weapons that they chose and the enemy that they want to attack. And that is the technical hard stuff where a heavy bike is going to slow them down, and myself. So I decided to go in a different direction and choose a different bike that would better fit my needs. But for you, if you're thinking about an Aprilia Tuareg, go for it. It is a great bike, a great platform, and it will serve you right. Guys, thanks for watching. Stay tuned. I've got one more episode of the Continental Divide coming up. I've bought all new equipment. As you can see behind me, I've got the Insta360 X3 and the Insta360 motorcycle bundle, and I've also got on order an Insta360 Ace Pro. So I'm going to have multiple camera angles and things for you guys. My biggest goal is to improve the quality of footage. I know that wind noise got a lot of my Continental Divide ride on the last season here, and I want to correct that. You guys have invested in me. I think we're up over 820 something subscribers, and I want to invest back into you. I want to give you material that you enjoy. I love to do it. I enjoy it, and I hope you do too. Thanks for watching, and enjoy the ride.